women were not invited to that table. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. Talk about it. And to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason. Because black people couldn't get into colleges. Yeah. See, this is not black, Asian women. This is all women. Women were not invited to this party. It was a man's world, and we busted our asses to make sure that this was a person's world.
ABC executives are in full panic mode right now. Karoline Leavitt's bombshell lawsuit against The View just exposed what happens when elite media personalities attack a young conservative woman on national television. The lawsuit that has Whoopi, Joy, and Sunny scrambling for cover reveals a pattern of hypocrisy so blatant that even loyal viewers are turning away. While they preach women's empowerment on camera, behind the scenes they're desperately trying to justify publicly humiliating a successful 25-year-old former White House staffer. This is the showdown that could finally change everything. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. The women of The View thought they could destroy Karoline Leavitt and walk away unscathed. They were dead wrong. What started as another day of leftist commentary quickly transformed into one of the most shocking attacks on a young conservative woman we've seen on daytime television. And now, it's coming back to haunt them in spectacular fashion. Let's break down exactly what happened. Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, and Sunny Hostin launched what can only be described as a coordinated character assassination against the 25-year-old Trump campaign spokesperson.
She's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though. It's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
This is the first time that she's been my point is that job would not maybe have been open to her.
No, I understand. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason.
This wasn't political criticism. This was personal. The moment Leavitt appeared on screen, the host's demeanor changed. Their faces tightened. The gloves came off. Joy Behar delivered perhaps the most disgusting blow when she smugly suggested that Leavitt was only hired because she's a 10 in Trump's eyes. Just let that sink in. A woman who claims to champion female empowerment reduced a Harvard graduate with White House experience to nothing more than her physical appearance. Behar's comment wasn't just inappropriate, it was absolutely vile. But Whoopi wasn't about to be outdone in the outrage department. She launched into a condescending lecture about how Leavitt wouldn't even have a job without wokeness, completely ignoring the young woman's impressive resume. This is someone who served as assistant press secretary in the Trump White House at just 23 years old and later became the youngest person ever hired as a congressional communications director. But according to Whoopi, Leavitt's achievements mean nothing without liberal policies paving her way. The hypocrisy is absolutely staggering. These are the same women who routinely preach about supporting other women, breaking glass ceilings, and stopping the objectification of female professionals. Yet here they were, on national television, tearing down a successful young woman for the crime of holding conservative beliefs. It's the perfect example of how the left's support all women mantra comes with an unspoken asterisk, except conservative women. Perhaps the most telling moment came when Leavitt attempted to respond to these outrageous attacks. As she began pointing out the host's glaring double standards, highlighting how they'd be furious if similar comments were made about a young liberal woman.
I would like this young lady this is her first job, I would like her to do a little homework. Because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. Women were not invited to that table. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you, because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
ABC producers suddenly cut her mic. The camera quickly panned away as producers scrambled to silence her defense. The contrast couldn't be more stark. Throughout the entire segment, Leavitt maintained her composure, sticking to facts and substantive points. Meanwhile, The View hosts became increasingly emotional and unhinged, talking over her, rolling their eyes, and making dismissive hand gestures whenever she spoke. They couldn't handle being challenged by someone who refused to back down. Now, Leavitt is fighting back with a lawsuit that has teeth. Her legal complaint details specific instances of defamation, character assassination, and deliberate misrepresentation. She's not just claiming they were mean to her, she's providing concrete examples of how The View hosts crossed the line from political disagreement into potentially actionable defamation. The lawsuit specifically cites Joy Behar's "hired for her looks" comment as defamatory, arguing it falsely implies Leavitt lacks qualifications for her position. It also points to Whoopi's wokeness statement as a malicious attempt to diminish Leavitt's professional accomplishments and portray her as unqualified. These aren't just hurt feelings, these are serious legal allegations backed by specific, documented examples. What makes this case particularly dangerous for ABC is that Leavitt isn't some random guest. She's a campaign spokesperson with a significant public profile. The potential damage to her reputation and career is substantial, which dramatically raises the stakes in terms of potential damages.
And as you mentioned, with conservative women, there's a long list of that, both of Trump's previous press secretaries, females, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Kayleigh McEnany, other figures like his campaign manager. That's probably kind of what the groupthink is. So one defense, I guess, is that she was speaking to her audience, but you take it outside of that bubble the way you are right now, and we all can see meant it when she made that statement, and she was conflating it with civil rights and how women didn't have the right to vote or own property and all of that. That has nothing to do with wokeness, which is, of course, about putting people in there because of their immutable characteristics rather than the merit that they bring to the.
The lawsuit also highlights the network's selective editing of the segment when it was posted online, allegedly removing context that would have shown Leavitt in a more favorable light. This suggests a pattern of behavior beyond just the on-air comments and demonstrates a potentially deliberate attempt to shape public perception against her. Legal experts are already weighing in, with several noting that ABC recently paid Donald Trump $15 million in a similar defamation case. This establishes a dangerous precedent for the network and suggests Leavitt's case may have real merit. The View's hosts may have finally picked on the wrong conservative woman. Remember when ABC thought they could simply edit out the worst parts of their attack on Leavitt and move on? Those days are over. Network insiders have revealed a state of absolute panic sweeping through executive offices as major advertisers, the lifeblood of any television show, are now making calls that have sent ABC bosses into complete meltdown mode. What's happening behind those closed doors makes the on-air drama look like child's play. Emergency meetings have become the new normal at ABC headquarters. Executives who normally spend their days in cushy offices planning programming schedules are now huddled in conference rooms trying to contain what many insiders describe as a catastrophic situation. The network that once prided itself on its progressive image is now desperately scrambling to save one of its flagship shows from complete collapse. The View's producers are feeling the heat like never before. Network bosses are reportedly grilling them relentlessly, demanding answers about how such blatant personal attacks against Leavitt were ever allowed to air in the first place. How did this get past legal, is the question being shouted in hallways and behind closed doors. The show's production team, once given creative freedom, now finds themselves under microscopic scrutiny. But the legal team's concerns might be the least of ABC's worries. The financial implications are sending shockwaves through the entire network. Multiple advertisers have already started questioning their association with The View, seeing the show transform from a ratings powerhouse into a toxic liability for their brands. Every time a sponsor threatens to pull out, executives see millions in revenue potentially vanishing. The panic has reached such heights that some ABC executives are reportedly begging Leavitt to drop the lawsuit before it escalates further. These desperate damage control attempts speak volumes about how seriously the network is taking this threat. Sources suggest they're even considering settlement offers to make this all go away quietly, a telling sign that they know exactly how vulnerable they are. Behind the scenes, a growing civil war is erupting among ABC's leadership. One faction is pushing for immediate disciplinary action against the hosts, arguing that making an example of them might salvage the network's reputation. The opposing camp fears losing their star personalities and the ratings they bring, creating a paralyzing divide that's preventing decisive action. This internal conflict has transformed ABC's executive floor into a battlefield of competing interests. What's perhaps most shocking is how quickly The View's own audience is turning against them. Ratings data shows a disturbing trend for ABC. Viewers who once loyally tuned in are now expressing disgust at the host's behavior. The hypocrisy of women who claim to champion female empowerment while publicly humiliating a young professional woman hasn't gone unnoticed. The very demographic The View has courted for years, women who value authenticity and fairness, are now leading the charge against them. The financial implications can't be overstated. With ABC having recently paid out $15 million in Trump's defamation case, The precedent has been set. The network's legal team is frantically assessing just how exposed they are with Leavitt's lawsuit, and the numbers they're coming up with are reportedly causing nightmares for the accounting department. One lawsuit might be manageable, but two major payouts in such a short time frame could devastate their annual performance. Most telling of all, ABC executives are now seriously considering major changes to The View, including the nuclear option of replacing some hosts. When a network starts contemplating removing the faces that have defined a show for years, you know the situation has reached critical mass. These aren't just cosmetic changes being discussed, but fundamental restructuring to salvage whatever credibility The View might still possess. What we're witnessing with the Leavitt lawsuit goes far beyond a simple spat with The View. This case is about to revolutionize how media accountability works in America. Legal experts are already predicting this could set a precedent that will send shockwaves through every newsroom and TV studio in the country. Remember that former Miss America contestant who successfully sued a major media outlet for defamation? That case transformed industry practices overnight, and Leavitt's lawsuit has even more potential for impact. The days when media elites could slander conservatives without consequences are crashing down before our eyes. This isn't just Leavitt's personal fight anymore. It's become ground zero in the battle to restore balance and fairness to American media. Every conservative who's been smeared, every voice that's been silenced, is watching this case with newfound hope. The media establishment is trembling because they know what we all know. Their protected status is finally coming to an end.